I can hear you call my name. I can hear you call my name. I can hear you call my name. Come to the table, cup runneth over. Come drink your fill and be well.
Hello, and thank you for joining me this evening. My name is Christy. Tonight, we are continuing from where we left off in the Underworld series. Tonight, we're covering part 7. I have a very unusual testimony, as you may know if you've been viewing my content for any length of time. But for those of you who are new to my channel, I am an alien abductee. Although they may be alien to us, but they are not coming into this world from a galaxy near you. No, they are not here to help humanity, and they did not seed us here. In other words, for those of you who watch and learn from the show Ancient Aliens, they are not our creators. In fact, they are the fallen angels, the hybrid children of the fallen angels, and the biological suits they make. These biological suits are for the disembodied children of the fallen angels. In other words, they are the dead Nephilim. The hybrid children of the fallen angels have been called many things over time, such as Nephilim, Anakim, Emim, and Raphaim, and the Zamzummim. They were sometimes worshipped as demigods throughout history, and are often spoken of in legends, folklore, and oral traditions where the tribesmen passed down knowledge to their people from one generation to another. In addition, the fallen angels, or as Tim Alberino calls them, the elder race, were known as gods in many different cultures, but they are not gods. They are impersonators of the true living God, Yahweh. These beings in today's modern age are known as the Nordics, the Tall White Blondes, the Galactic Federation, the Reptilians, the Greys, and the list goes on and on. Before we move on to my testimony, in full disclosure, I must warn you before I share my story that what I'm about to share can be considered quite graphic and may be traumatizing or triggering to some people. If you have a sensitive disposition, then you may want to consider leaving now. I have been an abductee for as long as I can remember. My memories have gone way back to as early as 5, maybe even 4 years old. I have shared this in another video in my alien abduction series if you haven't seen it yet. I will leave a link at the end of the video. Anyhow, I remember assuming that being abducted and taken up in the sky by alien beings, and sometimes under the earth in underground cities, was everyone's reality. You see, I have been abducted by these beings known as the Nordics and the small greys that act as their worker bees. This has been my reality for most of my life. In the years of abductions, it eventually led me to be taken to the cities beneath the earth I call the Underworld. On this particular night, around 3 a.m., I'm awoken to the sound of rushing wind in my ears as I'm being lifted at high speeds into the aircraft, which looks like a gray disc. I am paralyzed and can't move. A Nordic female being looks at me and realizes I'm aware and puts me back under mind control, and it's lights out. While I'm in a deeply induced trance or sleep, I'm taken to an underground dwelling once more. I'm aware now, but I am under mind control of some kind that keeps me compliant and easy to handle. I find myself in the presence of the same intimidating blonde giant I spoke of in previous videos in this series, the Underworld. He's around 7 foot tall, built like a Greek god on steroids with an intimidating demeanor, and it gives me the creepy feeling of Uncanny Valley. It was clear that this giant blonde man was not fully human. His eyes are illuminated blue like no human I have ever seen. I ran from the same 7 foot giant Nordic muscle man in the past. He had an expressionless face. He spoke telepathically. When he spoke telepathically, he showed feelings, but his face didn't match what was being shown to me on the inside. The same blonde giant just kept re-abducting me. I was in this place that was carved out of the rock within the mountain. It was very dimly lit. I could not see the light source, but everything just seemed to be illuminated from within the very walls themselves. The precision craftsmanship of the walls, floors, and stairs were so detailed and perfect it was astonishing. It reminded me of the hypogeums discovered across the world, except these were in use and in pristine condition because they were actually lived in and maintained. The difference is that they were much further under the earth in a world that is not known to many. These rooms have large entryways because these mighty men were much taller than fully human men. They're also much wider. L.A. Marzulli is a researcher that had done incredible work in the field pertaining to Nephilim and when it comes to hybrid children of the elder race. He researched quite a bit on the skulls and bones of these creatures. He discovered that they have 2-to-1 ratio shoulder to height, as opposed to a regular man who has a 3-to-1 ratio of shoulder to height comparison. This means that a normal human man can measure his shoulders across and times that measurement by 3 and you will be able to calculate his height. But with the Nephilim, their ratio is 2 shoulders width and that calculates their length. That means if they're 7 foot high, then they're 3.5 feet wide on their shoulders. That's a little scary. Imagine how much bigger and stronger this being would be. Now you add telepathic abilities that enable them to manipulate a human being and you have a real problem on your hands. You see, for most of my life, I was abducted by the Greys and the Nordics that most people hear of that were normal in shoulder to height ratio, but were just very tall and slim. They share characteristics with the giant men. They are both unusual looking because of their eyes that are blue and almost illuminated. Then their lack of expression and perfect-looking faces that resemble a Nordic look. These Nordic giants are the offspring of the human women being abducted, just like the Nordics, but these mighty men are created for a different purpose. They are in fact creating an army in the underworld. They are creating an army deep below our feet. In Luke 21:26, it states that men's hearts will fail them for fear and for looking upon those things which are coming on the earth. For the powers of heaven shall be shaken, and then shall they see the Son of Man coming in the cloud with power and great glory. And in Isaiah 13:3, it clearly says, I give command and I bring them. Giants are coming to fulfill my wrath, rejoicing at the same time and insulting. This does not mean that their hearts are pure and working on behalf of the Lord. It means that the Lord has allowed this to happen. As usual, the Lord will take his enemies' tactics and use them against them. In reality, they will be accomplishing his will. He will take his hand of protection off the world and allow all hell to break loose. But that hand of protection will never leave God's children. He will never leave you nor forsake you. Rest in the knowledge that the Lord will always have your back. Now, when I was in the house of this giant, it had perfectly carved stairs, as I mentioned before, and tables carved right out of the stone floor. It was simply amazing. Even the tall ceilings and the entryways of this dwelling were carved with an artistic feel of architecture created by a true artist. There were more than a few rooms in this place. It seems quite vast with many halls and dwellings, with tall ceilings of about 10 to 20 feet high, depending on the room or what part of the room you were in. You could get lost in this place. On this particular occasion, he was lying next to me on the bed, half asleep. I had become very aware all of a sudden, as if I was under some kind of magical mind control spell that was somehow lifted abruptly. As soon as I realized where I was and who he was, I panicked and quickly tried to crawl away. With a swift but quick motion, I moved towards his feet to get to the end of the bed. I was hoping to slip away quickly into the night and try to find my way out of this place. He did not get up. He didn't move a muscle. He just grabbed me with both legs and stopped me from leaving again. I had a habit of coming to and then trying to escape. I remember feeling the thick, curly blonde hair on his legs rub against my face really hard when he clamped down on me with the kung fu grip of his legs. Then I feel his large hand grab my arm and fling me back into the direction, landing me right next to him, face to face, as I felt a rush of panic and adrenaline flood my body. He looked very unimpressed with my attempts to get loose again and barely made an effort to gain control over me. He then telepathically made a mental suggestion that I was with my boyfriend and I was very tired and needed to sleep. So I looked at his face. I felt this sense of dread for a moment. Then I felt this overwhelming need to sleep, as I could barely keep my eyes open, but I fought to do so anyways. I looked at his enormous hairy blonde chest that had no shirt on, then looked up at his face. I then felt a calm wash over me, and I was out again. I woke up back in my bed and realized that what had happened again and felt the horror of reliving it over again in my mind. I felt so helpless. Who could I tell? So I kept it to myself for a long time, but the Lord has given me the courage to share my story. And if you're somebody that has a story like mine, and the Lord has led you to share it, please write me at battlebornbelievers@gmail.com. I'm trying to get this message out to as many people as possible. If the Lord has led you to donate to help me keep this channel going and growing, I put a link in the description below. Thank you so much for joining me, and may God bless you. Don't forget to join me for the after show, where you can ask questions and have a conversation about the video and topics related. There is a link in the description as well. I look forward to meeting you.
I can hear you call my name. I can hear you call my name. I can hear you call my name. Come to the table, cup runneth over. Come drink your fill.